When President Trump says he will never leave an American behind, he means it. Idan Alexander has been released from Hamas captivity and reunited with his family in Israel. This is the result of unwavering American leadership. President Trump and Secretary Rubio are also strengthening strategic ties in the Middle East, delivering security and economic wins in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Earlier today, President Trump announced Saudi Arabia's $600 billion commitment to invest in the United States, building economic ties that will translate into jobs and opportunities for the American people and the region. Secretary Rubio will next travel to Turkey to attend the NATO Informal Foreign Ministers meeting. Since the November election, 20 NATO allies have announced increases in defense spending, a direct result of President Trump's leadership, and a renewed commitment to peace through strength. We also welcome the ceasefire between India and Pakistan and commend Prime Ministers Modi and Sharif for choosing the path of peace. As President Trump said, their decision reflects strength, wisdom, and fortitude. We urge both sides to maintain direct communication to preserve regional stability. Regarding Iran, negotiations continue to show progress. This administration remains clear. Iran will never be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. As President Trump has said, Iran can have a much brighter future. The time is right now for them to choose. And finally, the President has secured another win for American workers. An initial agreement with China to reduce China's tariffs and set a path for future discussions to open market access for American exports. As President Trump has said, the U.S. will continue to prioritize fairness, reciprocity, and results. The American people are already seeing the benefits. Inflation is down, grocery and gas prices are falling, and optimism is returning across the country. President Trump is once again delivering on his promise to make America great again. And before I take questions, I would like to thank spokesperson Tammy Bruce and the entire team for its unwavering support. It is an honor to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions for the American people. And with that, I'll take some questions.
Tommy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome to the briefing room. Trump said today that he's ordering the cessation of sanctions on Syria. How quickly will the U.S. lift these sanctions? Is this something we could expect as soon as coming days?
I have nothing additional to preview. The President obviously spoke to this, and the President has been clear he wants to see prosperity for the entire region. That's part of the purpose of this trip, so nothing to further preview in terms of a timeline.
And is the U.S. pressing the UN Security Council to lift sanctions on HTS?
Again, nothing to preview on that front, but as the President said, this is about making sure we can have a region with peace and prosperity, long-term prosperity. And as Caroline Leavitt said before the trip, this is about a golden age both for the American people and for the Middle East. And we're seeing that dedication with the many different announcements that the President made today.
Can you give us an update on the talks between Russia and Ukraine later this week? Will Secretary Rubio be participating in those talks? What are the expectations from the U.S. side? And there's been talk about a face-to-face meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Can you tell us anything about that or talks to prepare for those talks?
Well, the President has spoken to this as well. He has been clear that the meeting in Istanbul is a critical opportunity for direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. That has been clear. The President has also been clear that he wants to see those talks happen, and he's been dedicated to trying to first get that ceasefire and then an enduring peace. In terms of specifics, nothing further to preview. The President also spoke to this during his speech just a short while ago. I'd refer you to his comments there. But this is a critical opportunity to, have those direct talks to try to achieve that ceasefire and then that long and enduring peace. Yes.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you behind the podium. Very quick question. On Sunday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the ethnic cleansing of Gaza is inevitable and that they were targeting every house in Gaza for that purpose. So is the United States, are they okay with that kind of language, or would there be a rebuke in the future of such a thing that is clearly, speaks of a war crime? What is the position of the U.S.?
Well, first, I don't accept the characterization of your question. And second, I'd say that Hamas bears sole responsibility for the war and for the resumption of hostilities. We want peace and the immediate release of all hostages. And we've also been clear from this podium and elsewhere that any departure from Gaza must be voluntary.
Yeah, but you, as far as what he said, that's what came out of the cabinet meeting. Independent of what we hear about Hamas and so on, and they are responsible for this. But do you have a position on the forcible removal of the Palestinians from Gaza?
Look, I just answered that question. I stand by what I just said, and ultimately, Hamas bears sole responsibility for this war. Yes.
Follow up on Gaza. The spokesperson last week, Tammy, mentioned that a foundation would be set up. At that time, it was very shortly. It was last week, to distribute aid into Gaza. Where does that stand now? Is this still a project? It's still in the works. Is it going to happen? And the Israeli Prime Minister also said that in the coming days he would go in full force into Gaza. Would that disrupt those plans, or is it calculated and being prepared together? How does that work?
Well, look, we won't speak on behalf of the foundation, and we'll defer to the foundation in terms of any announcement that they may or may not make. But bottom line is we welcome moves to get aid quickly into Gaza, and we also welcome creative solutions that make sure that that aid actually gets to the people that need it and is not falling into the hands of terrorists such as Hamas. So we support creative solutions to get that aid in there. We want to make sure it's done in a way where it's not falling into the hands of Hamas, that is actually reaching the people that need it. And what is as clear as day is that the people of Gaza have suffered tremendously under Hamas. So we support those creative solutions to get aid in there, and the president has been very clear, as has Secretary Rubio. Yes.
I wanted to ask your response of reports that there were back-channel talks that led to the release of Idan Alexander, with a Hamas official reaching out to the former leader of Arab Americans for Trump. Can you speak to that report and any details about how the release came to be?
So I'm not going to comment on private diplomatic conversations, but what I will say and reiterate is that this shows that when President Trump says he will never leave an American behind, he means it. This is the direct result of American leadership, as I said earlier, and again shows the fact that President Trump is forever working for the safety and security of the American people, as is Secretary Rubio. But I'm not going to discuss or give details of private diplomatic conversations.
Not denying it?
Again, whether or not that or did not happen, I'm not going to talk about private diplomatic conversations, whether or not they did or did not happen. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Holly. Two, actually, one on Afghanistan and then a follow-up on Gaza. Yesterday, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that the temporary protected status for Afghanistan would expire on May the 20th. She said the conditions in Afghanistan have improved enough for Afghans to return there. Does the State Department think that Afghanistan is now a safe destination for women and girls?
Well, look, ultimately, when it comes to the temporary protected status, I refer you to DHS. It was always meant as a temporary measure or temporary benefit. This is the when that temporary benefit would expire. So for further questions on that, I refer you to DHS.
And then just to follow up on Gaza, you said you support efforts to get aid quickly into Gaza. Here we are more than 2 months later. How soon is quickly? When can we start to see food actually getting in?
Well, look, I think it's important to understand, again, that we're looking for those creative solutions to get that aid in there. We're fully supportive of those measures. And it's also important to reiterate that Hamas bears sole responsibility for this conflict, as well as sole responsibility for the condition under which the people of Gaza are living. So I'm not going to put a timeline on it from here. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the foundation. But what I will reiterate is that we are supportive of creative solutions to get aid in there, but also in a way that the aid is not falling into the hands of Hamas, that it actually reaches the people that need it. Yes.
Yes, Tommy, thank you. I wanted to ask you about the president's trip to the Middle East. He had some comments today in terms of talking about the way that the U.S. approaches countries in the Middle East and the criticism of past policy, saying that for too long many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. There's been a critique of the State Department, I think, externally by some analysts about the changes to areas of the department that deal with issues of human rights and kind of what have been traditionally seen as U.S. values issues. Is this the president endorsing that shift in terms of the State Department's focus? Do you think that criticism that we've seen from civil society is accurate?
Well, look, I think the results speak for themselves in terms of what President Trump and Secretary Rubio have been able to deliver for the American people. The results they've been able to deliver. President Trump is a peacemaker. He is a deal maker, and he is constantly putting Americans first. And when we approach foreign policy in a standard where we're approaching that American first perspective, that allows opportunities to pursue common interests, that allows deals to be made, that allows us to have stronger bilateral relationships where we're finding those common areas to work together on and advance those common interests. As spokesperson Bruce has said many times from this podium, just because a framework changes does not mean that the priority necessarily changes as well. Oftentimes what we're seeing in terms of how we're approaching the State Department and other aspects are a way to deliver on our priorities better, more effectively, in a way that actually delivers results for the American people. We are making sure every single dollar that we spend from the State Department under Secretary Rubio is advancing the American interest. Does it make us safer, stronger, more prosperous? And I think that's a standard that the American people expect us to have here at the State Department. They're happy to see that, and the results, again, speak for themselves with perhaps the most successful, I would argue, the most successful 100-plus days in history. In this past week, the results we have seen from President Trump speak for themselves.
Thank you, Tommy. A question about the new arrivals from South Africa that landed in Dulles yesterday. The UN's International Organization for Migration has told ABC that they were not involved in administering any loans, and typically they would be the ones to run loans funded by the State Department to pay for refugees to come to the United States to cover those travel costs. Wondering, can you speak to how that travel was funded, or say anything more about whether the State Department is giving out any loans in this case?
Well, look, I'm not going to talk about specific relationships we have with organizations. I'm also not going to talk about operational details in terms of how we're implementing the priorities laid out by the President and Secretary Rubio. The main bottom line, though, is that we are implementing those priorities. We are seeing the President's executive orders being delivered upon here at the State Department, and this is an example of that, of course, collaborating across different agencies. So we're going to continue seeing those priorities fulfilled, but I'm not going to comment here on internal operational details or specifics of that nature.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Tommy.
A question on Turkey, and I have a question on Iran too. Yesterday, the Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK) declared its